My mother's hand was already on my register when I heard my dad say it, loud enough for the line of customers to go quiet. Family discount, he announced, like it was a law of nature. 50% minimum. My chest went tight. Behind him, my brother smirked like he'd come to watch a show. My brand new cafe smelled like espresso, warm pastry, and fresh paint, and suddenly it felt like it smelled like betrayal. And the worst part, my dad leaned in and whispered, "If you embarrass us in front of everyone, you'll regret it." That's when I realized opening day wasn't just my dream coming true, it was about to turn into a public family war. But to understand how I ended up here, my own parents trying to bully me in my own business, let me take you back. Because the truth is, they never thought I'd get this far, not even close. You ever have people who say they support you, but somehow their support always sounds like a warning? That was my parents. Growing up, my brother Caleb was the headline. I was the footnote. Caleb got leadership. Caleb got potential. Caleb got a real future. I got creative, a nice hobby. I got, you'll grow out of it. At dinner, my mom would brag about Caleb's internships like she was reading a press release. Caleb's firm flew him out, she'd say, eyes shining. First class, can you believe that? Caleb would barely look up from his phone. It was fine. And then my dad would glance at me. So, still making coffee for strangers? I wasn't making coffee for strangers, not yet. I was working at a little cafe on the edge of town and saving every tip, every single one. But I didn't correct him because correcting my dad never ended well. You know that feeling when you're explaining your dream and people hear it as a joke? That was my entire 20s. I was the person who stayed late, learned how to fix the grinder, trained new hires, learned the numbers, learned ordering, learned how to handle a rush with shaking hands and a smile. And I loved it. I loved the sound of milk steaming like a soft roar. I loved the clink of mugs. I loved how a good latte could change someone's whole morning. I didn't just want to own a cafe. I wanted to build a place that felt like safety, a place where people could exhale. But at home, it was all with benefits. I have benefits. We get health coverage, and I'm moving up. My dad laughed, not a big laugh, worse, a small, dismissive one. Moving up where? To head coffee girl? Caleb snorted, "Dad, don't." But he said it like he was pretending to defend me while enjoying it. I looked at Caleb. "You don't have to do that." He shrugged. "I'm just saying, the market is saturated. Everyone opens a coffee shop. It's not exactly innovative." And my mom's face softened like she was trying to be kind. "Sweetie, we just don't want you to waste your life." Waste my life. That phrase stayed in my head for weeks, like a pebble in a shoe. Tell me honestly, if your own parents said your dream was a waste, would you keep going? Because I did, quietly. And that's the part they didn't see. I didn't argue at dinner anymore. I didn't pitch my dream like a sales presentation. I just worked. I took extra shifts. I learned bookkeeping at night. I watched videos on leasing. I took a free small business class at the community center where the instructor smelled like peppermint gum and spoke like she'd fought 3 wars. And I saved money like my life depended on it. Because in a way, it did. My parents didn't know I'd started a separate account. They didn't know I was meeting a local baker at 6 a.m. on Sundays to test recipes. They didn't know my manager at the cafe, Maya, had begun mentoring me like I was her younger sister. Maya was the first person to ever say, "You could absolutely run your own place." And when she said it, something unclenched inside me. One night after closing, we sat on overturned milk crates in the back, eating the last croissant like it was fine dining. You've got the brain for it, Maya said. You're just surrounded by people who benefit from you doubting yourself. I blinked. Benefit how? Maya wiped sugar off her thumb. Because if you believe you're small, you stay small, and then they get to be the big ones forever. That hit me so hard I couldn't even respond. And that's when the tension started rising in a way I didn't expect. Because the moment you decide you're not playing the old role anymore, people notice. At first, it was subtle. My mom stopped asking about my day, like my life was no longer relevant. My dad started making little comments whenever we were in the same room. "You hear about the new place on Elm?" he said one morning, flipping through the paper. "Closed after 6 months. Guess the owner thought Vibes paid rent." Caleb snorted. "Oh, wow. That's crazy." And I said nothing. I just stirred my coffee and felt my jaw tighten. Then the real thing happened, the opportunity. A small retail space opened up downtown. Perfect corner, big windows, foot traffic from the farmer's market. It had been a bookstore years ago, and I swear you could still smell paper in the walls. I visited it alone the first time and stood in the middle of the empty room. My footsteps echoed. Sunlight fell in long, bright stripes across the floor. And I saw it. I saw the counter, the pastry case, the little plant shelf, the cozy corner with a community board and soft music and people reading. I saw my dream like it already existed. And that's when my phone buzzed. It was my mom. "Caleb's coming over for dinner," she texted. "Try to be pleasant." I stared at the empty room and laughed, one sharp breath. Try to be pleasant? Like I was the problem? Like my existence was an inconvenience? And I made a decision right there. I wasn't telling them until it was real. Because I knew them. If I told them early, they'd poke holes in it until it sank. So I signed the lease. I did it with my hands shaking so badly, the realtor slid me a bottle of water like I was about to pass out. "You okay?" he asked. I swallowed. "I've been waiting my whole life to do this." He smiled. "Then do it." I went home that night and laid the lease agreement on my bed like it was sacred. And I whispered to myself, "We're doing this." Now, here's where the hidden truth part comes in. Because yes, I had saved money, but not enough. Not for build-out, not for equipment, not for permits and deposits, and the 1,000 tiny things that appear out of nowhere like financial jump scares. So I needed funding, and I didn't go to my parents. Instead, I went to the one person in my family who'd always quietly watched everything. My grandfather, my dad's dad. We called him Pops. He lived in a modest house across town and smelled like cedar. I insulted him. "Hey," I said. He didn't look up. "You look like you're about to confess to a crime." I laughed nervously. "I might be committing one." He finally looked at me, eyes sharp. "Tell me." So I did. I told him about the space, the lease, the plan, the vibe, the menu, the community board, the local artists I wanted to feature. I talked fast, like if I slowed down, the fear would catch up. And Pops listened the entire time without interrupting. When I finished, I held my breath. He nodded slowly. "You've done your homework." "I have, but I'm short on funding. I'm not asking for charity. I can pay you back. I just..." He held up his hand. "I know what you're asking." My throat tightened. And Pops walked inside without a word. I followed, heart pounding. He went to a drawer, pulled out a small envelope, and placed it on the table like it weighed nothing. Inside was a check, a big check. I stared at it like it was a hallucination. "Pops," I whispered. He raised a finger. "Before you thank me, listen." I swallowed. He leaned closer, voice quiet. "I'm not investing because you're family. I'm investing because you're you. You've got grit, and you've got heart." My eyes burned. "Thank you." He nodded. "Now, one condition." Of course there was a condition. "What?" He pointed at me. "You don't let your father touch it." Touch what? Your business. Pop's voice turned firm. Your dad's got a way of showing up when something starts shining. He didn't build that hardware store with me. He watched me build it. Then he tried to tell people it was his. I blinked. What? Pop's mouth tightened. He was supposed to inherit it. I planned it. But he made decisions behind my back, tried to leverage loans, tried to use my name. I sold it before he could sink it. I felt like the air had changed in the room. Pops continued, eyes locked on mine. He's been chasing shortcuts ever since. And he doesn't like when someone else wins without him. I sat down because my legs suddenly felt weak. All those years, all those comments, all that real business talk. And Pops, quiet Pops, was telling me my dad wasn't some business hero. He was a man who resented success he couldn't control. Pops slid the check closer. You keep it tight, you keep it legal, you keep it yours. I nodded, throat thick. I will. And you don't tell them where the money came from, Pops added. Not until you have to. That was my secret advantage. Not luck, leverage. A silent ally. And it mattered more than I realized. Because the moment construction started, my parents noticed. It's funny how people suddenly see you when you're visible. I was painting walls, hauling supplies, meeting with inspectors, living on protein bars and iced coffee, and suddenly my mom called me. "Are you renovating something?" she asked, too casual. "How did you know?" I said, holding my phone between my shoulder and ear while I wiped paint off my cheek. "I drove by downtown," she said. "I saw you through the window." "Of course." "And," I said. A pause. "What is it?" I smiled, even though she couldn't see it. "It's mine." Another pause, longer. "What do you mean, it's yours?" "It's my cafe," I said, simply. "I'm opening a cafe." Silence. Then my dad's voice in the background, sharp. "Put me on." My mom did. "Is this a joke?" my dad demanded. "No," I said. "It's real." He laughed. "With what money?" I could feel the trap in the question. "I saved," I said, "and I planned, and I got funding." "What funding?" he snapped. "A small business loan," I lied smoothly. Pop's warning rang in my head like a bell. "You don't let your father touch it." My dad made a sound like he was tasting something bitter. "You're making a mistake." "Okay," I said. He paused, like he expected me to fight. Then my mom chimed in, voice sugary. "Well, we just hope you know what you're doing." "I do," I said, and I hung up before my hands started shaking. If you were in my shoes, would you have told them sooner? Because I'm telling you now, something in me knew they wouldn't be proud. Not really. They'd be threatened. The weeks leading up to opening were chaos. Equipment deliveries got delayed. The espresso machine arrived with a dent. The health inspector failed me on a technicality because my hand wash sink needed a slightly different faucet. I spent one night on the floor in the empty cafe, back against the wall, staring at the ceiling while my phone buzzed with emails. I thought, what if they were right? What if I'm not built for this? And then my phone buzzed again. Maya. "How's it going?" she texted. I stared at the screen, then typed, "I'm drowning." She replied immediately, "Good. That means you're in the water. Most people never jump in." I laughed, a watery sound, and wiped my face with my sleeve. And I got up, because quitting wasn't an option, not after all those years of being told I was small. Opening day came faster than I thought it would. We called the cafe Juniper and Stone. Juniper because it smelled like fresh air and courage. Stone because I needed to remind myself that I was solid. The morning of opening, I got there before sunrise. The street was quiet, cold air biting my cheeks. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The lights flicked on. The space glowed warm. The pastry case was full. The espresso machine hummed like a living thing. The chalkboard menu looked beautiful. And I stood there for a moment, alone, and whispered, We did it. My hands trembled as I tied my apron. I could hear my heartbeat louder than the music. Then the first customer came in. A woman in a big coat, cheeks pink from the cold. She smiled. "Oh my gosh," she said, looking around. "This is adorable." "Thank you," I said, and my voice cracked a little. She ordered a latte and a blueberry scone. When I handed it to her, she said, "Congratulations." And I swear my eyes almost overflowed. Then the rush started. People poured in, neighbors, friends, downtown workers, curious strangers. The line grew. The bell over the door kept ringing. The air filled with laughter and steam and the sound of cups clinking. Every couple minutes, something said something that felt like oxygen. This place is so cozy. I love the name. Finally, something like this in town. And every couple minutes, I thought, you won't believe this is real. That's when the doorbell rang again. I looked up, and there they were. My parents, Caleb behind them. My mother walked in like she owned the place. My father scanned the room like he was inspecting an investment. Caleb's eyes flicked to the line, and then to me, and his smile was sharp. My stomach dropped. I kept working, kept smiling at customers, kept moving, but I felt them watching. My mom glided up to the counter when it was their turn. "Well," she said, loud enough for people nearby to hear, "look at you." My dad leaned on the counter. "Not bad," he admitted, like he was being generous. Caleb tapped the menu board. "Prices are bold." I forced a polite smile. "What can I get you?" My mom made a little show of thinking. "We'll do 3 lattes, and whatever pastries are most expensive." My dad nodded. "And you'll ring it up with a family discount." I blinked. "A what?" He smiled like I was slow. "Family discount. 50%. Minimum." I felt my face heat up. "Dad," I said, keeping my voice low. "Not today." He leaned closer. "Not today? You're serious?" I glanced at the line behind them. People were watching. My mom's smile hardened. "Don't be ridiculous," she said. "We're your parents." Caleb chuckled. "It's opening day, sis. You should be generous. It's good PR." Good PR. My hands tightened around the paper cup. I could hear the espresso machine hissing behind me, like it was annoyed too. I said quietly, "I can do 10%, like any other loyalty discount." My dad's eyes sharpened. "You're trying to charge your own parents full price?" I looked at him. "This is my business. This is how I pay rent." His voice rose. "We raised you!" And that's when the room shifted, like everyone felt the tension snap into place. My mother's tone went sweet again, the way she did when she wanted control. "Honey, don't make a scene." My dad's jaw worked. "You know what? Fine, if you're going to treat family like strangers." He turned to the customers behind him. "Can you believe this, after everything we did for her?" I froze. My heart hammered. This was the moment from the beginning, the confrontation, the pressure. And then my dad said the line that made something inside me go still. "If you embarrass us in front of everyone, you'll regret it." My hands started shaking, just slightly, enough that the lid on the cup clicked. And I realized something else. This wasn't about a discount. This was a test, a public test, to see if I'd fold like I always had. Tell me, what would you have done? Because here's what I did. I looked at my dad, then at my mom, then at Caleb, and I smiled. Not a sweet smile, a calm one. "Okay," I said. My mom's face relaxed like she'd won. My dad nodded like a king granting mercy. "Great," Caleb said. "Smart." I held the register open just long enough for the drawer to pop with a loud, unmistakable clack, and I said, clearly, "No discount." The silence that followed was so sharp you could cut yourself on it. My dad's face turned red. "What did you just say?" he hissed. I set the cup down, removed my apron slowly, and stepped out from behind the counter. The air felt cold against my skin, even though the cafe was warm. "Dad," I said, loud enough for the people closest to hear, "you don't get to threaten me in my own business." My mom's eyes widened. "Threaten you? We didn't." "You did," I said. My voice surprised even me. It was steady. "You said I'd regret it if I embarrassed you." My dad scoffed. "I meant—" "No," I cut in. "You meant exactly what you said." Caleb shifted, suddenly less amused. "Okay, relax. It's just family stuff." "Family stuff?" I repeated. "You mean the part where you all told me I'd never own a real business? That family stuff?" A woman near the front of the line sucked in a breath. My mom's cheeks flushed. "We were trying to protect you," she snapped. "From what?" I asked. "From succeeding?" My dad's voice went dangerous. "Don't talk to your mother like that." I nodded slowly. "You're right, I won't." Then I turned, walked to the wall near the community board, and I pulled down a framed photo. It had been hanging there since yesterday. Pops and me, standing in the empty cafe, both of us grinning like kids. People hadn't really looked at it yet. It was just part of the decor. But now the whole room watched as I carried it back to the counter and set it down facing my parents. My dad's eyes flicked to the photo and then away, like it burned. I said, "This is the only person in my family who showed up before I had something to prove." My mom stared at the frame, confused. "Why is your grandfather—" "Because Pops invested in this," I said. My dad's head snapped up. "What?" I kept my eyes on him. "He believed in me. He helped me open." Caleb blinked. "Wait, Pops gave you money?" I nodded. "Yes." My dad's mouth tightened. "No, he didn't." I tilted my head. "He did." My mother looked like she'd swallowed something sour. "Why would he do that without telling us?" I let that question hang for half a second, because the answer was the whole point. Then I said it anyway. "Because he told me not to let you touch it." The words landed like a glass dropped on tile. My dad's face went blank. Caleb's smirk vanished completely. My mom whispered, "He said that?" I leaned in slightly. "He also told me you tried to take credit for his store, that you tried to leverage loans behind his back, that he sold it so you couldn't sink it." The room was so quiet, I could hear the milk steaming behind me. My dad's nostrils flared. "He's lying." I didn't even blink. "He's not." Caleb looked between us, like he was suddenly realizing the script had changed. My mom's voice trembled, but not with sadness, with anger. "How dare you bring that up in front of strangers?" I nodded. "Exactly. How dare I?" Then I stepped back and raised my voice, not shouting, just clear. "For everyone here, welcome to Juniper and Stone. Today is opening day, and I'm really happy you're here." A couple people smiled awkwardly, unsure if they were allowed to breathe again. I continued, "But I want to be transparent about one thing. This business survives because the prices are fair for everyone. We don't do special treatment based on who someone is." My dad stared at me like I'd grown horns. "You're humiliating us." I met his eyes. "No, you came here to humiliate me." My mom scoffed. "We're your family." I nodded slowly. "Then act like it." Caleb stepped forward, trying to sound reasonable. "Look, just give them the discount. It's not worth the drama." I looked at him. "You know what's not worth the drama? Me spending my whole life trying to earn basic respect from people who only show up when they think they can take something." That's when my dad's voice dropped low, like he was trying to regain control. If Pops gave you money, then it's still family money, he said, which means we deserve consideration. I smiled again, but this time it was sad. That's the difference between you and Pops, I said. He gave because he believed. You demand because you think you're owed. My dad's hand twitched like he wanted to slam the counter again. Then he did something that I honestly didn't expect. He reached for the register. My mother's hand actually moved toward it too, like they were so used to taking control, they forgot where they were. And that's when Maya, my former manager, now my hired operations lead, stepped out from the back. She was holding a clipboard. She looked at my dad like he was an insect. "Hands off the register," Maya said calmly. My dad scoffed. "Who are you?" Maya didn't flinch. "Someone who knows how businesses work." Caleb's eyes narrowed. "This is insane." Maya pointed to a small sign near the counter. "Also, you're on camera." My dad froze. My mom blinked fast. "Camera?" I nodded. "Security system. For safety. For staff." My dad's face shifted, like he realized the threat he'd made earlier was now recorded, like his attempt to grab the register was now evidence. And here came the major twist, because I wasn't just prepared emotionally, I was prepared legally. I reached under the counter and pulled out a simple folder, thin, neat, labeled. My dad stared at it. "What's that?" I opened it and slid out a paper. "This," I said, "is a no trespass notice." My mom's mouth fell open. "You're joking." I kept my tone calm. "I'm not." Caleb laughed, but it sounded forced. "You can't do that." "Yes, I can," Maya said, tapping her clipboard. "Private property." I looked at my parents. I didn't want to use it, but Pops told me to protect what I built. My dad's voice shook with rage. "You would ban your own parents?" I stared at him, heart pounding, but voice steady. "If you keep threatening me or trying to interfere, yes." People in line were fully watching now. Nobody was pretending to browse the pastry case anymore. My mom's eyes flashed. "You're ungrateful." I nodded slowly. "Maybe. Or maybe I'm finally done being your punching bag." My dad's lips pressed together so hard they turned white. Then he said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Fine, enjoy your little coffee shop." Little, of course. He turned to leave. My mom followed, eyes burning. Caleb hesitated, looking at me like he wanted to say something clever, something cutting. But then he glanced at the cameras, at the customers, at Maya, at the photo of Pops. And for the first time, he looked unsure. He muttered, "This isn't over," and walked out. The bell over the door jingled as they left, and I stood there, shaking, trying to process what just happened. The room stayed quiet for a beat. Then the woman in the big coat, the first customer of the day, stepped forward. She smiled gently. "Can I get another latte?" she asked. "And maybe one of those cinnamon rolls." A couple people chuckled softly, like the spell had broken, and suddenly the cafe was alive again. The espresso machine hissed, cups clinked, people started talking. But my hands were trembling so hard I had to grip the counter. Maya leaned in. "You okay?" I exhaled, shaky. "No." She nodded. "Good. That means you're human." Then she added quietly, "Also, that was legendary." I let out a breath that almost turned into a laugh, almost turned into a sob, and then I got back to work. Because here's the thing, that moment could have destroyed me, or it could have freed me, and I chose freed. The aftermath didn't end that day. If you think my parents quietly accepted it, you don't know people like them. That night, my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. My mom texted, "I can't believe you did that. People were staring." My dad left a voicemail. "Call me. We need to talk about what you owe this family." Caleb sent one line. "Pops is manipulating you. You're being played." I stared at the messages, sitting in my empty cafe after closing, lights dim, chairs flipped up, the smell of coffee lingering like a ghost. And I realized something that made my stomach turn. They weren't upset because they'd hurt me. They were upset because they'd lost control. So I did the hardest thing. I didn't reply. I blocked my dad's number for the night. I muted my mom, and I called Pops. He answered on the second ring. Well, they came, Pops grunted. Of course they did. And they demanded a discount, I said. And Dad threatened me. A pause. Then Pops sighed. You handle it? I looked around my cafe. My cafe. I thought about the no trespass notice, the cameras, the way my voice didn't break when I set my boundary. I did, I said quietly. I handled it. Pop's voice softened. Good. I'm proud of you. My throat tightened. Thank you. Don't thank me, he said. Thank yourself. You did the work. After I hung up, I sat there for a long time. Not sad, not angry, just different, like something old had fallen off my shoulders. And from that day on, the power balance changed. My parents started telling relatives their version of the story, of course. She humiliated us, my mom said to my aunt. She thinks she's better than family, my dad told anyone who'd listen. But something unexpected happened. People started coming to my cafe and quietly telling me the truth. My aunt came in one afternoon, ordered tea, and leaned in. Your dad's been telling everyone you stole Pop's money, she whispered. I felt my stomach drop. What? She nodded. But honestly, people don't believe him. Pops has been talking. I blinked. Pops has been talking? She smiled. Apparently, he's been waiting years to talk. I nearly laughed. Pops, the quietest man alive, finally speaking? That alone was a plot twist. And it got better, because one day, about a month after opening, Pops walked into the cafe during a slow morning. He wore his usual jacket, his hands were in his pockets. He walked up to the counter, looked around, and nodded like he approved of the universe. Then he said, loud enough for the couple customers nearby to hear, "Place feels solid." My eyes warmed. That's the nicest thing you've ever said. He smirked. Don't get used to it. Then he slid a folded paper across the counter. What's this? I asked. Read it later, he said. I tucked it away. After he left, I opened it with shaking fingers. It was a copy of a legal document, a trust. Pops had set up a small business trust designed to protect my cafe from interference from anyone, including my father. I stared at it, stunned. And at the bottom, a handwritten note in Pop's neat, blunt script. Your father can't take what you build. Not anymore. I sat down in the corner booth and cried. Not dramatic, just quiet tears that felt like a release. Because for the first time in my life, someone in my family didn't just say they believed in me. They proved it. Now, my parents did show up again, twice. Once, my mom came alone. She walked in like she was entering a courtroom. Her makeup was perfect, her smile was tense. She ordered a coffee, paid full price, and then said, "So, are you happy?" I looked at her over the counter. "I'm tired," I said honestly, "but yeah, I'm happy." She nodded like she didn't know what to do with that. Then she said, "People talk." I shrugged. "Let them." Her eyes narrowed. "You could have handled that privately." I leaned forward. "You could have supported me privately, the hardware story now, like Dad's some kind of villain." I looked at him. "Maybe Pops is just telling the truth." Caleb's jaw flexed. "You really think Dad's the bad guy?" I didn't answer right away. Then I said, "I think Dad's a guy who doesn't know how to love without controlling. And you learned from him." Caleb's eyes flashed. "That's not fair." I tilted my head. "Isn't it?" He looked away, then back. "You're acting like you're better than us." I shook my head. "No, I'm acting like I'm free." That landed. I saw it in his face. He didn't know what to do with a version of me that wasn't begging for approval. He ordered a black coffee, paid full price without a word, and left without saying goodbye. And you know what? That was enough. Because the resolution wasn't them apologizing in a movie-perfect moment. The resolution was me not needing it. Juniper and Stone kept growing. We hired 2 more staff. We hosted local artist nights. We became the place where people met for first dates, job interviews, quiet mornings after hard nights. I watched customers become regulars. I watched teenagers get their first paychecks from me. I watched strangers become community. And every time the bell over the door jingled, I felt something steady in my chest. Pride. Not ego, pride. The kind you earn. Sometimes, late at night, I'd remember my dad's voice. "You'll never own a real business." And I'd look around my cafe, my real business, and I'd smile. Because the truth is, he was right about one thing. I'd never own a business the way he understood business. I wasn't building something to control people. I was building something to serve them, to connect them, to create warmth. And that's exactly why he never understood it. Here's what I learned, and I want you to really hear me. Some people will only support you when they think your success still belongs to them. The moment your win becomes yours, they'll try to shrink it, claim it, or punish you for it. And the only way out is to stop auditioning for love that comes with strings. Because love doesn't threaten you at your own register. Love doesn't demand discounts as proof of loyalty. Love shows up before the applause. So yeah, my parents came on opening day demanding a family discount. But what they really wanted was proof that I was still theirs to control. And they didn't get it. I did. And I'm not going back. Now tell me, if you were in my shoes, would you forgive them? Or would you walk away like I did? Because me, I didn't just open a cafe. I opened a door. And I finally walked through it.